Hi everyone, I apologize for the extreme delay. Unfortunately, I had some severe hiccups. On top of that, nothing kind of worked out right, and the video for me restoring this actually got destroyed or corrupted while I was working on it today. So we're going to go ahead and just get right to it. So we're going to go ahead and just describe what this machine is. This is a horse-drawn sickle mower. This is a McCormick number 6. Uh, It was made, I believe I found it on the frame in 1919 or 1916, one of the two. I'm currently pointing at all the different things that are on this that makes it a sycamore. Um, it took a while to get all these parts working again. I had to paint it, I had to weld it, I had to do everything. There I'm pointing at the front, I guess it would be a support axle for the actual sycamore bar, and that's the rear one that I had to rebuild. I used a 4x4 treated lumber that I got from Lowe's. There was a deal on it, so I went ahead and just grabbed it. So anyway, I walked over to the side of the actual blade, and this is what I'm touching. This is a sickle bar. We're going to cover all of this later on in the video. I'm just pointing to everything that we're going to discuss right now. Generally speaking, you don't ever get your fingers close to the blade. I'm not actually ever touching them. I'm never in them. They're extremely sharp and dangerous. So a lot of my rebuilds that I do, I use all brand new hardware, and I use new paint. You know, obviously you have to do that, and I use a whole array of different things. So basically, if I was a farmer back in the early 1900s, you get up like that, you would hold the reins out in front of you. All your um, I guess you want to call it controls, would be on the right side of you. So you would have the tilt, which would be the red bar, and you would have the vertical lift, which is the blue long lever to the right of me directly, which would control the sickle bar going up and down so you wouldn't have to get off. Unfortunately, all those pieces are gone. You can see that, unfortunately, I have to kind of jimmy things around a little bit. It is in working condition. You just don't have the fancy feature of it lifting up with a lever. You now have to physically do it. You can see that is the tilt and the tensioner for the sickle bar, which is extremely helpful when you're trying to get the right angle for cutting. And there I am just kind of wiggling around. It kind of actually upsetted me because all the parts were supposed to be there, and the parts that came along with this rebuild were actually not the correct ones at all. So as the farmer would get off, he would kind of climb off, and these are the foot controls that would engage the clutch, which would then in turn go ahead and activate the teeth on the sickle bar. So you would sit there, and you got your lower one, which would be the lifting, the vertical lift. It would help you lift it up, and you could pull it up and down. The lever would have to be down, and then to the right of that, you would have the clutch, which is the red foot lever, which is the odd kind of dual one. It has an upper and a lower, which that one engages, and then the one below it goes ahead and disengages. So I'm going to show more of a detail on what that does. You can also see right here that this is a tilt lever. And generally speaking, you don't activate this or touch this when the control arm is directly up and down. But you can kind of see how there's some play in it when I go up and down. If I push it hard enough, you can kind of see the bar moving, and such as the different pitch going up and down towards the ground or up towards the sky if you want to get a little bit higher of a cut off the ground. So just to the bottom left of the foot activated lever, you can actually see the spring collapsing and then pushing out when it activates and deactivates the clutch in the gear housing area. And that was actually a hard fix. I had to take that spring off, I had to galvanize it, and then I had to go ahead and paint it again. And I wish I had all the video for that, and I don't. It gets me super mad. But you can see that just kind of pushing that lever in, and then taking your foot off, and then pushing it in again, you can see that those clutch plates connect. And when they connect, like so, that means that they are connected, and you activated the sickle bar. When they're spaced out apart from each other, like that, then it means that it's free, and you can drive it without the sickle bar going anywhere. Now, This is the flywheel for the wheel, or for the gear really, for the clutch right there. And you can see in the lower left hand corner of the screen, or excuse me, right hand corner, no, that is left, that as the wheel is spinning, it is activating the flywheel, which is down there on the pitman arm. The gears that I'm pointing at are the ones that are inside the frame that go out to that flywheel for the pitman arm of the Sickle Bar. Generally speaking, all the gears and any type of axle will be inside the frame, and the frame was casted, so that was also a fun thing to paint over. I have a strap on the Sickle Bar to keep it in place because I don't have the vertical lock on the blue handle for the actual vertical tension slash support lock mechanism. It was all disintegrated or missing when I received this piece to restore. So I went ahead and kind of just put it down for you guys to give you an overhead view. So basically you have about really 4 or 5 main things that make a Sickle Bar more. Is first you got the actual bar, you got the teeth on it, you have the knife hold downs, and then you have the foliage and rot guards, which are those long pointy blue teeth. With that being said, you can see that on the right of the screen I tried fusing it together, but the teeth go back and forth very rapidly, which is actually how a lot of kids and farmers lost their fingers trying to work on these while it was still activated. You have to be very careful when you're working on these to always be at a safe distance and make sure that everything's off or disengaged at the same time. And then last but not least, at the very left of the Sickle Bar, that really pointy spear looking thing, that is your edge guard. And that also usually has something that's about 4 or 5 foot high, so you can see it sticking up above the hay, so you can see where the edge of your guard is at. And there I am pointing at both of those that I just described earlier in this video. Also, you have the axle, which is what's connected here. Basically, what this does is this connects the yoke to the Sickle Bar to have a sturdy frame so it stays in place and you can control it. You got the 2 hold downs that hold and supports that hold the actual knives in place so they don't rattle and they don't break. It's the same with the hold downs throughout the bar. You can see I have all new hardware on there because it was all rusted and gone, and I didn't feel safe. You can see that that's how it's activated in the corner over there of the video. And it basically, those 2 blue clamps clamp on a steel ball, which holds it in place from it actually going anywhere besides back and forth. And then what I was just touching right there was actually a tilt adjustment as well. You can see the different holes in it, and it has this severe tilt depending on what you're trying to do, whether cutting real low or up higher to keep the hay from dying out. Depends on whatever you want, I guess. What my hands are touching is actually where the axle is at for the flywheel that drives that wooden pitman arm you see that also in turn drives the teeth. The flywheel was hard to work on as well. It actually had a crack that I later on found while painting, so I had to go ahead and re-weld that. And again, that was also cast, so that was kind of fun to do that. You can't even tell that I did it. It's sturdy, everything's good. You can see that it rotates just like that. And there's a bronze bushing on what I'm touching at right now is where actually another small mini axle is at, and a bronze bushing rotates around that, keeping it in place and in check. And you can see the 2 holes right there. The bigger one is where you let the oil in so the bronze bushing doesn't get too hot and get destroyed. So as you can see, it goes back and forth non-stop. It just goes in a circular motion, and the circular motion is on the side of it and going back and forth. So I have the video set up now, and I'll walk over and I'll grab it so you can see exactly what it's doing. And this is basically what it's supposed to do. And I'm going so fast with it that my camera can't actually even keep up with the frame rates on it. And it wound up kind of lagging there. But they're going so fast that that's how they're able to cut hay and alfalfa, is by going back and basically making a shear, but the shears are razor sharp. This is what really got me mad. All the hardware that was supposed to be there actually wasn't there, and the guy that had it didn't even have the correct hardware for this machine. So basically, you would have a cast iron bar there that would get hooked up to that hole that you see in the bottom left of the screen on the sickle bar, and when you would hit that blue lever and pull it back towards you, it would pull up that sickle bar, and there was another piece on the other side of this yoke that you saw that would hook up to the wagon beam, which is that metal, or not metal, excuse me, the wooden beam coming from the sickle bar, that it would keep it from dragging on the ground and stabilize it. And that's a part of it that I've taken off and tried rebuilding, but I didn't have enough parts, so I just left it there. And I'm going to bring it up now. You can see that that would actually hook up right there, and it would have a stabilizer arm that would hook up to that wooden beam, and until it would keep it from actually slamming into anything. And I left this blank because I usually leave them blank, so the person that's buying it can set it up for their specific horse or horses. But in this case, I believe this is just a one horse unit. I guess you could use two. So basically, you would have a support in the front and the back of the horse that would hook up to a harness, and the horse would evenly carry the beam and machine at the same time. You can see that it's very light, and I balanced it pretty good. So there's not a whole lot of stress on the horse. What the stress really comes from is pulling. There's no actual weight on the horse, but you still need to be careful on it. Now, I'm not sponsored by them at all, but I have to give them extremely good credit. You can see how much polish and how shiny and the gloss it is on the finish, and that's with dirt on top of it for me crawling all over it. The paint that I like using is called Van Sickle. I get it from Orchlands. I've got it from a bunch of farm stores, but there's Orchlands that's closest to me, and you can see that Van Sickle, it's tractor enamel and industrial equipment enamel. I used Massey Ferguson red for the red because it was nice, bright, popping red, just like they were back in the day. And the blue, I used a Ford blue. The white was, I think it was a Rust-Oleum heavy-duty enamel. But the reason why I like Van Sickle the most is because the Van Sickle stuff is extremely durable, especially UV proof. I don't like leaving my machines out in the sunlight, so I usually have them covered. But if you do choose to use it and you're restoring a piece of equipment and you're choosing to leave it outside, Van Sickle is the way to go. It has a lot more UV protection than most paints. And one of the cooler parts about it was, and I'll see it in the video in a second here, is that it's an extremely thick paint, and it will actually fill certain crevices, cracks, and make a nice even polished surface when applied enough. Most paints do that, but this one has a little bit of a harder surface tension. So this is the toolbox that I used it on. You can see it's extremely pitted, and I got to clean out some wood on it. But you can see over, I would say, probably over 100 years, water has pitted and damaged that toolbox. So I sprayed a bunch of this enamel in there, and it basically got every single crack and crevice. And when I tested it with a scraper, none of it came off. It didn't chip, and it stuck on there like it was supposed to. And it's an amazing quality paint. I love it. Now, with everything that we've talked about, here you're going to see that, if I'm the farmer from 100 years ago, I get up on top of this machine, I get everything set up and just working right. Obviously that would be upright before I would go to cut. I got to move that because that was in the way. I just went ahead and put it in the toolbox because it fit perfectly. But the farmer would get on the machine, he would lower the arm down, he would then get the tilt right, He would then go ahead and activate the clutch, and then when he would activate the clutch, he would be ready to cut. You check your gearbox like that, and they do have a latch on it. I just have it loose so I can open it up and down. And for this purpose of this video, I grab the switch, and then I go ahead and activate it. Once it's activated, it goes down past your hip a little bit, and then you activate the foot clutch, and you're ready to go. And then you would tell your horse to go ahead and start pulling, and you'd start cutting. Now I went ahead and just kind of fast forward to the part where you actually saw me pulling it. I had a longer video of me trying to pull it and it getting jammed up, but then once I got it working, it worked great, and I'll show you what it looks like. Right here, I pulled it a little bit. I had it kind of back up a bit, but then I started pulling it. Once I started pulling it, you were able to see everything kind of click into place. You can see the teeth going back and forth. The drive wheel is driving the pitman arm. When you reverse it, it doesn't affect anything because it's supposed to do that. And then there you go, it's cutting. Another thing that really got me mad was one of the main things that, are really helpful for this machine is the housing spring. So it would hook up there and it would hook up to the red hook down there where I'm touching. And that was what would give tension to the lever so it wouldn't flop easily. Because you would have the weight of the actual bar pulling forward while that's pulling back, and it would make it stay in place. Unfortunately, that wasn't there. I didn't have it. Nothing that is really vital for this machine to work with the vertical lift was actually on this machine. Every time somebody gives me money, or if I do it for myself, I always replace the hardware as much as I can, unless it's a specific part and I can't. Then I usually re-weld it and give it a new face. So you can see that I just used a bunch of bolts. I think some of them are stainless steel in certain areas. I wanted to make sure everything was correct. So everything has washers on it. Because if you don't have that and it's so old and cast, you can actually wind up cracking and breaking the frame. So washers has a bigger surface area, so that doesn't crack as much and reduces that risk. Then we come to the grease points, or really I should say oil points. Basically, everybody kept asking me what these tabs were that you see here, and you now would call them a grease point, but back then they just used oil. So you would stick your oil gun down there and you would just keep filling it up, and it would keep sopping the oil down into the hole and into the gearbox and everything else to lubricate it. And I was going to drill them out and make them grease nipples, but unfortunately I just didn't have time, and that was a lot more work, and I just didn't feel like that was a good idea for this specific design. So I just filled them up with WD-40. Usually I use a type of transmission fluid, but in this case I just use WD-40 just for video purposes. And I'm spraying the inside of the gearbox, making sure all the gears are lubricated, making sure everything is okay, so nothing locks up, nothing rusts, nothing breaks, nothing gets too hot. And then you can see the two grease points down here, one right here for the axle and the flywheel, and then you see a really big open hole that's supposed to have a cap right there where that bronze bushing is. And I just filled that up with WD-40 as much as I could, because it definitely needs the lubrication. Otherwise it will lock up and rust up, and that's always fun to deal with. So you can see that it just sinks in there. You just keep filling them up, and when you're done, you close a tab over it, and that's supposed to keep the rain, water, and everything else off of it. And this piece of equipment is actually going to be up for sale for about $1,400. Usually I sell them for about $1,700 or $1,800 a piece, but unfortunately this is missing a lot of pieces for the vertical lift, so I took that into accommodation for the price. So I wish you guys could have seen what I worked on. Unfortunately, none of that video I was able to save. It all got corrupted. I love doing this type of work. It's not fun, but it's enjoyable knowing that I saved a piece of history that could have been destroyed another 20, 30 years, but instead I saved it for another 30, 40, 50 years maybe. I also like it when customers send me videos of them working on all the hay rakes and everything I've rebuilt and done for them and how they made it work for their farm. And this is just a little piece of history. I'm glad you guys stopped by, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Also, thank you for all the donations. They helped me buy the tools that I needed to complete this job.